The night was cold and silent, broken only by the distant hum of the wind brushing against the towering trees. Elena tightened her scarf around her neck as she walked briskly along the dimly lit path, her boots crunching on the gravel. She had always loved the quiet of the countryside, the way it embraced her with solitude, but tonight that stillness felt different, heavy, almost suffocating. She could not shake the strange feeling crawling up her spine, a sense that something was watching her from the shadows. Elena's thoughts drifted, as they often did, to her life 34 years old, a primary school teacher in Norwich, England. A quiet existence, predictable in its rhythm. She lived with her husband, Daniel, a man of few words but deep thought, who had always been her anchor. Their marriage had seen years of gentle love, the kind that didn't roar like fire but glowed like embers, steady and constant. Or at least, that's what she believed. Lately, though, something had shifted, an invisible distance settling between them like fog on a winter morning. Tonight was supposed to clear her mind. A short walk, fresh air, and perhaps clarity about the whispers of doubt gnawing at her. But fate had other plans. As she rounded the bend near the old mill, her breath hitched. There, under the pale light of a flickering street lamp, stood a man. Tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a dark coat that fluttered in the wind. His face was shadowed by the brim of his hat, but she could feel his eyes on her, sharp, unyielding. Her heart thudded. She thought about turning back, but pride and perhaps curiosity rooted her in place. The man took a slow step toward her, and in that moment, the silence shattered. A scream pierced the night, raw and desperate, echoing from the woods behind her. Elena spun around, panic clawing at her throat. Another scream, this time louder, followed by the unmistakable sound of a struggle, branches snapping, a muffled cry. She didn't think, didn't hesitate. Her feet carried her into the darkness, toward the sound. The forest swallowed her whole, its shadows wrapping around her like cold hands. She ran, her breath sharp in her lungs, until she stumbled into a small clearing. And there, beneath the skeletal arms of an oak tree, was the source of the screams, a young woman, bound and gagged, her eyes wide with terror. Standing over her was a man, his back to Elena, his hand raised with a glint of steel. No! The word tore from Elena's throat before she could stop it. The man whirled around, eyes blazing, knife flashing in the moonlight. He lunged. Time fractured. Elena's world became a blur of motion and fear. She ducked, felt the wind of the blade slice past her cheek, stumbled back, and then, out of nowhere, the stranger from the street lamp appeared. He moved like a shadow, swift and precise, grabbing the attacker's arm and twisting it with brutal force. The knife clattered to the ground. The fight was vicious, silent save for grunts and the thud of fists. Elena stood frozen, heart pounding, as the stranger delivered a final blow that sent the attacker sprawling unconscious on the forest floor. "Are you hurt?" The stranger's voice was deep, steady, as he turned to her. In the faint light, she saw his face for the first time, strong jaw, piercing blue eyes that seemed to hold secrets older than time. I'm fine," she stammered, though her hands trembled. He nodded, then moved to the young woman, cutting her bonds with a flick of his knife. "Take her home," he said, his tone brooking no argument. Elena wanted to ask 1,000 questions. Who are you? How did you know? Why were you there? But before she could speak, he was gone, swallowed by the night like a phantom. That was how it began. For days, Elena couldn't shake his image from her mind, the stranger with eyes like winter skies and hands that dealt death with frightening grace. She told no one about that night, not even Daniel. Something about the stranger felt too sacred, as if speaking his name aloud would shatter the fragile thread connecting them. And then he appeared again. It was a week later, a rainy afternoon, when Elena found herself at the small cafe near her school. She had gone there to escape the grayness that seemed to seep into her bones. As she sipped her coffee, lost in thought, she felt that same electric charge in the air, the one that had prickled her skin in the woods. She looked up. And there he was. Sitting 2 tables away, his coat draped over the chair, a book in his hands. Their eyes met, and the world fell away. He didn't smile, didn't speak, but something passed between them in that gaze, a recognition, a question, a promise. Elena's pulse quickened. She told herself to look away, to gather her things and leave, but her body betrayed her. When he finally approached, the cafe seemed to shrink around them. "You shouldn't walk alone at night," he said, his voice low, almost tender. "You followed me." Her words came out sharper than intended. "I made sure you got home safe." A pause, then, softer, "I had to." And just like that, the walls she had so carefully built began to crack. They started meeting in secret at the edge of the woods, in quiet corners of the city where no one knew her name. His name was Adrian, though even that felt like a mask. Everything about him was cloaked in mystery: where he came from, what demons haunted his nights. But in his presence, Elena felt alive in a way she hadn't in years. He listened, not with the distracted patience of someone waiting for their turn to speak, but with a depth that made her feel seen, known, cherished. Yet beneath the pull of their connection, danger simmered. Adrian's world was not hers. It was a labyrinth of shadows, of men with knives and whispers of debts written in blood. And soon, that darkness began to seep into her life. The first warning came as a note, slipped under her door: "Stay away from him, or you'll both bleed." The second was a shadow outside her window, gone before she could scream. And then came the night everything shattered. Daniel found out. He had grown distant, yes, but not blind. The late night walks, the sudden laughter in a woman who had forgotten how to smile, it all added up. When he confronted her, his voice was quiet, deadly in its calm. "Who is he?" Elena's throat closed. She wanted to deny, to lie, but the truth hung between them like smoke. Daniel's eyes hardened, and for the first time in years, she saw the man beneath the gentleness, the steel, the pride. "You've put us in danger," he said. "Do you even know who he is?" And that was when the pieces began to fall into place. The rumors she had heard in hushed tones, the news of a man hunted across Europe, a ghost in the criminal underworld. Adrian wasn't just a stranger. He was a storm, and she had walked straight into its heart. The night that followed was chaos, a blur of headlights, shattering glass, and gunfire ripping through the silence. Adrian came for her, his face carved from stone, his eyes burning with something that wasn't love but something fiercer, darker. "I told you," he said as he pulled her into the car, bullets sparking against the metal. I told you my world would destroy yours. But she couldn't let go. Even as sirens wailed and the city burned behind them, she knew one thing with terrifying certainty: she would rather fall with him than live without him. And so they ran through cities that blurred into one another, through nights that smelled of smoke and fear, through a love that was as doomed as it was eternal. Because some stories don't end with happily ever after. Some stories end with two souls bound by fate, running from the world, and into the fire together.